there was a bar mitzvah.
Did you get through? Or you got through?
Took me almost 10 minutes to find a parking spot.
Okay. This is a true story, and this is a very common story. When Rabbi was on a plane, and obviously he was being served kosher food, so he asked the stewardess whether she knew the meaning of, kosher food. What is it all about? So the stewardess told him, it's food which is blessed by a rabbi. That's what kosher food means. So another rabbi, when he heard this, next time he traveled on the plane, he asked the same question. When she's serving him, she says, do you know what kosher food is? She said, yes, it's food which is served, it's blessed by a rabbi. And then she asked him, she said, if a rabbi blesses the pig, can the pig become kosher? So the rabbi responded, he says, no, but the rabbi will become unkosher. And she told the rabbi, she says, she told him that she knew about kashrut from a Jewish ex-boyfriend. So that's, so the rabbi says was very depressed. The rest of the flight, he said the laws of kashrut had regulated for thousands of years that an animal be killed as quickly and as painlessly as possible, that Jews not eat any animal they wanted, and that Jews not hunt. And now Judaism is being transformed into something like voodoo, where you have a rabbi over there. Can you imagine the picture, the chickens are brought in front of the rabbi, and the rabbi is blessing each chicken. That's the picture people have of the laws of kashrut.
The priest blessing something.
Could be.
That's the way they look at religion.
All right, but that's one of the, the misconceptions people have. Not only non-Jews, but Jews themselves have misconceptions. One makes something kosher?
No, it said, what do you call food that's been blessed by a rabbi?
Oh, I see.
And I got very upset.
Okay.
I wrote them a
Well, that's the
letter.
wrong
They
answer.
never wrote back.
Ignorance, that's all.
Unfortunately, it's a very widespread. It's prevailing. Now, this is the idea of kosher, is that the rabbi blesses it.
There's so few people that are even of the faith,
Right,
and of
exactly,
the flock,
100%.
that observe it anyway.
That's the idea of this class. That's why we're having this class, is to teach more people about it. But another general misconception is that the laws of kashrut are meant only for Jews, which is wrong. And we're going to go through the differences. So the assumption is it's partly correct and it's partly not correct. The first law given by God to man was a dietary law. God tells Adam, he says, don't eat from the trees of knowledge of good and evil, which is really a dietary law. Don't eat. It's a dietary law given to Adam. Whatever the deeper symbolic and philosophical meaning of this law, was after all a dietary law. Don't eat something. If we look at the Bible, we do find 3 stages in relationship to food. What are the 3 stages? We find that Adam, the first man, was supposed to be a vegetarian. And this is explicit in the Torah. It's the first man in Genesis chapter 1, verse 29. And God says, he says, behold, I have given you every herb which is in the face of the earth, and every tree. To you it shall be for food, and to every beast of the field, and to everything that creeps on the earth. So in other words, the trees and the fruits and the vegetation was given to Adam, and also to all the other animals to be food. No animals were given to Adam. Food was given, the vegetables were given to Adam and the animals. The second stage is after the flood, Noah and his descendants were permitted to eat animal flesh. So that's what the Bible tells explicitly. Again, to Noah it says, the animals are like the fruits, they're allowed to you. So the animals become delegated to the level of fruits. However, there are certain exceptions. There are 2 exceptions. Blood of animals was forbidden to Noah, and also a limb of a living animal. Those are 2 exceptions. That's why I said before that kashrut applies to everyone in terms of these 2 laws. These 2 laws apply to mankind as a whole. One of the 7 laws of Noah, that is a limb from a living animal, and also the blood, which is the blood of the soul. And that's something which will be required from man afterwards. There's different reasons given for the change. Why suddenly was man allowed to eat animals? One of it could be that because the man's life was shortened, they had to live life at a faster pace. And just vegetarianism will not keep a man alive, especially in those days where they never knew how to balance their diets. Who knows? That could be one reason. Okay, in those days, maybe.
No,
they didn't. Okay.
Vegetarianism is easier to balance balance your diet than eating.
Okay, maybe
That's
today
what
when we've
common
studied,
sense says.
maybe when we've studied it.
No, even
Okay,
if not. It's
fine.
probably
The other way around.
misconception.
Okay, fine. That reason is not
It's
mentioned.
very, very common
That reason is not
misconception.
mentioned anywhere in the Bible. It's just an idea which has been thrown out. There's another reason which is mentioned is that since Noah saved the animals, they were given to him. Once you saved them, they belong to you now. You can do whatever you want with them. So that's the.
Isn't right.
Those are reasons which we're inventing now to try and rationalize what's going on over here. Sure.
Since this is my belief, is that the whole reason that the law of Abraham and Hachai is pulling the limb off an animal was given was because people were actually doing that. And since people were actually doing
Right.
that, Hashem said, well, if you're going to eat animals, I'm going to give you a code of laws to do it, rather than just, it seemed apparent.
In other words,
that people
they were
could
doing
not
it anyway, so God
do it.
says, do it this way.
Well, the
Yeah.
same with keeping safer with the dairy and the meat. For those people who don't know, play chicken.
But that's not no
Same
chayba.
with
That's second.
violence. Violence is the root. Really, if you think about it in your heart, feel that, know that.
Killing animals.
No, to take,
A limb from a living animal.
No, to take a goat as well, and to boil it in its mother's milk.
Yeah, we're coming to
Same
that. We
sort
haven't,
of
we haven't
thing,
discussed. We haven't got there
same
yet.
idea.
We haven't got there yet.
Tearing of the limb, it's a violent act, altogether. Both of them.
Okay. The question is, what about surgery? Say the animal was operated on.
No good.
Same
Tumors, no good.
Okay, so that's the question. Even if there's no violent act attached, it's still the Bible forbids it. So even after man was allowed to eat animal flesh, a special safeguard was found necessary in order to avoid any undue strengthening of the animal nature of man. And that is that this law of limb from a living animal applies universally, even to non-Jews. The third stage in kashrut, in laws of food, was reached with a divine revelation at Sinai. But before we discuss these points, two things must be made clear. Number one, Jewish dietary law do not belong to the sphere of medicine or hygiene. It's got nothing to do with medicine, it's got nothing to do with hygiene. It's got to do with morality and holiness. That's what the Bible tells us explicitly. It says you will keep these laws to be holy. Okay, so it's got to do with holiness. We have to discuss this idea of what is kashrut got to do with holiness.
It's another thing to mention. If someone is so ill that if the doctor prescribes to eat treif for his betterment,
Right.
then it's permitted, of course.
Right. So that's another general rule. Nothing stands in the way of pikuach nefesh, saving a soul, except for three cardinal sins. What are they? Killing another person,
Forbidden sexual union,
right?
and
Adultery,
bowing down to idols.
and idolatry. Those are
Adultery.
three things which are
Adultery
not not permitted at all, even for the sake of saving a life. Those three things are not allowed. But kashrut does not come in that category. Obviously, a person is allowed to eat non-kosher food if the doctor prescribes it to save a life. And the idea behind it is, the Torah tells us, live in order to keep other commandments. Why die for one when you can live on and keep many others? That's the idea behind it. Talmud gives that with respect to breaking the Shabbat to save someone. A person allowed to break the Sabbath to save someone. It says break one Sabbath so he can keep many Sabbaths. That's the logic behind it. Except for those three cardinal sins, which a person must not break at any cost.
And then also, like one other situation, like you're doing it, I'm trying to remember which rabbi it was told by one of the Romans to eat treif in front of the entire nation. And
That's the story of Hanukkah. That's the story of Hanukkah,
Story of-
where that's how it started. The Maccabees started, the revolt started because the Greeks caught one Jew and said, eat the pork or we'll kill you. So he ate the pork in front of everyone, and he was killed by
And
the
they
Jews.
wanted their
I heard that it
statues
was
to be
just that
put
it
in
was the
their...
rabbi and that he didn't do it because, and the reason was because if he's doing it in front of people,
Right, okay.
it's not a matter of people.
Right,
But
right.
on top of that,
Okay.
they were also forcing them to keep, they wanted them to keep statues of their Roman emperors in
Right.
their... in.
Right, that's one of the rebellions.
synagogue.
That's the reason for the rebellion. Anyway, let's not get off the point.
Get to the point.
So that's one point is kashrut does not belong to hygiene or medicine. Nothing to do with medicine. It's to do with holiness. Obviously, there may be secondary benefits as well, but that's not the primary benefit. The primary benefit is not hygiene. The primary benefit is holiness, and we have to discuss what does that entail. The idea is if a person has eaten forbidden foods, they have corrupted the person's soul. In Talmudic jargon, it's called timtum halev. The heart becomes corrupted. Obviously, it's something which we're not able to measure in terms of scientifically. I don't know if you can conduct any scientific experiments to measure this, but that's what the Talmud seems to imply based on the verse in the Bible. The Bible says to make you holy. There's something involved in terms of the spirituality of the person who doesn't eat all these different things. The second point is asked by thoughtful Jews and non-Jews, and that is if Jewish dietary law has such a beneficial impact on the soul, say, why isn't it universal? If it's so good, why did God come along and say this is for the Jews and not for anyone else? Why doesn't it be expanded to everyone? So that's another question which we have to answer.
Well, if you're not holy, why should you do something to elevate your soul?
So the idea is to make you holy. That's the whole reason for kashrut, is to make you holy. It's want to make everyone holy.
But if you don't believe in God in the first place, or have
Supposing you do.
or have faith,
Supposing you do.
then you should.
Should.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's your version. Okay, that's
They
not.
haven't accepted it.
Even if they do accept it,
They haven't.
they know there's no commandment. They're not commanded to do these things except
Only
for the
the
law,
Noahide
Noahide laws. That's right. They're commanded to do Noahide laws, no laws of kashrut. So that's the question we have to answer: is if the Bible is not a tribal book, but is intended to convey a message to mankind at large, why did God not give dietary laws to the whole of mankind?
Don't the Muslims
They do, but again, they're not commanded by God. They may say that they are, right? But their religion was started in the 8th century
The
CE.
laws aren't identical either.
Right. There's
At all.
differences. Let me give you an example. When I learned the laws of shachita, of ritual slaughter, I learned it in an Arab village. El Azariah was just outside Jerusalem. We used to go there every day to slaughter and learn how to slaughter lamb and learn a lamb. And the Arabs were, we used to slaughter for them. And if we said it wasn't kosher, they would look at us and and think they lost some money on it because it was their lambs we were learning on. So we explained to them, look, our laws are different than yours. You're allowed to eat it, we're not. So they looked at us and they were happy. They were allowed to eat it, we weren't allowed to eat it. But it's a very, very difference. If they slaughter, we're not allowed to eat from it. They can eat from our slaughter, we can't eat from their slaughter, because their idea of slaughtering is taking an axe and chopping the head off. That's also a ritual slaughter for an Arab. For Jews, it's not. It's got to be a very sharp knife, which is just used smoothly, a smooth action, and no hard chop. No hard chops allowed. So big difference. They may appear to be the same, but there are variations. But again, where do they come from? The ideas are based on the Bible. It's a recent religion. Yes.
You do the shechita, do you
Yes.
say anything?
Definitely, there's a blessing before the shechita. Maybe that's where the misconception came from. Since the mitzvah from the Torah to do the shechita, there's a blessing. Just like on every mitzvah we do a blessing, it's also before the shechita we do a blessing.
The blessing is on what?
On the shechita itself, the act of slaughtering.
On the shechita.
On the act of
not
slaughtering.
on the
Because the mitzvah is to slaughter. So every mitzvah we do, we make a blessing acknowledging that God is the master who commanded us to do this
In
thing.
other words, if these ignorant people knew that everything concerns a prayer and a blessing, they would just understand that it's just
Right.
part of the program
That's
and not
right,
that
exactly.
it's special, particular,
Exactly.
or voodoo-like.
There is
or
one
whatever.
thing which we do which is interesting, is the covering of the blood of an animal. Not an animal, a domesticated
I'll
animal,
bury it as well.
a bird and a wild animal. Which kind of wild animal is kosher? Anyone know?
Venison.
A
Venison.
deer. That's something which is not reared.
Venison.
Right, venison. It's not domesticated. It's not reared in a farm. A deer or a
Can you-
buffalo. Buffalo is kosher as well.
But could I bring you one and you could do it for me if I caught him?
A deer?
Yeah.
I had
Would
my
you?
knife and my equipment.
Would you?
Well, I don't think.
If I caught one,
Go ahead.
I have tons
law
of them in my
allows
house.
that.
No, not right now.
I
The
think
law's
US
against it.
law
Okay.
requires you to shoot it in the wild. I think that's why it's. in the
Well,
fine.
does everybody got to know?
Okay, when we're alone, we go in the wild somewhere. Okay.
I'm hungry for
They
lobster.
wrote
I haven't eaten it in 17 years though.
Okay.
Almost 17.
So that's interesting idea of the covering of the blood is a very, very sensitive idea. The idea that blood is the source of life, and we have to have respect for life.
You do whatever you want. You're allowed to now. 12 of them on your property. So go ahead.
What do you mean by covering the blood?
Okay, very good. So there are two
Very
things. Let me just go back to the topic. Birds and wild animals, as we define, deer and buffalo, their blood, once they've been slaughtered, the blood which comes out has to be covered. Whereas you take sand, just like covering a human body after death. So also the blood of the animal has to be covered over. And there is a blessing to be said over that as well. It's a sign of respect for the life of the animal. As the animal lived, we have respect for the life of the animal, we cover its blood. We eat the flesh, but we cover its blood. The Bible tells us the soul is in the blood. It was the last amount of blood which comes out, the soul, the lifeblood. That's why we get the term lifeblood of a person. Blood is linked to life. Once the blood comes out, the life comes out, the soul comes out with the blood. Okay, that's an interesting idea. There's another blessing said on that commandment. This is a commandment, there's another blessing said on that covering. The act of covering is also a mitzvah.
That's only on the wild animals.
That's only on wild animals and birds. So chickens would also come in that category.
involved in the sacrifices also?
Not covering the blood, no. The blood was sprinkled on the altar for the sacrifices. No. Okay, so let's go back to the question, is if this is such a good idea of dietary laws, why not give it to everyone? And the answer is that no one else needs it. Why don't they need it? Because one of the purposes of this law is to keep the Jews as a national entity. And let me give you an example. One of the first things that fell by the wayside in America are these laws. People started eating everything because it was inconvenient to keep the laws of kashrut. And that led to widespread assimilation. In other words, if I can't eat your food, I know I'm different. It's one of the first things which keep separation. And maybe that's what it means by holiness. Holiness is always denoted as separation. Something which is holy is separate. God is holy because he's removed from the materialistic world. So also Jews are holy in terms of separation. We have to separate ourselves. Why do we separate ourselves? This is a very big debate. It goes back to Abraham. God tells Abraham, circumcise yourself. Separate yourself. Circumcise yourself.
Confirm that covenant.
The Talmud tells us that Abraham had a big question, should he or not? Because his whole mission in life was to change people. If people view him as being someone different, they're not going to be influenced. And that was his debate in his mind. So he asked one of his friends. His friend's name was Mamre. And his friend said, don't worry. He says, you can still be different and you can still influence people. In fact, it's going to cause more interest. If the person looks the same, there's not as much interest in that person. If they look different, then people open their eyes. Right? Why is that person doing these things? Why is that person different? What makes that person different? This way, they can be more of an example to people than by being the same as people. If a person stands out, it's more noticeable. It's one of the laws of, maybe kashrut is based on that. Again, I say maybe, because that's not mentioned anywhere in the Bible. It just says to be holy. The question is, what does that mean? Does that mean spiritually holy? Does that mean different from people, separate from people? So the question is whether the desire for conformity is an ideal worth striving for. And that was the idea of the American melting pot, is that everyone should be the same. Conformity. Today we're going back to the system of people going back to the roots. And let's start off with the movie The Roots, right? Alex Haley started off this whole movement back to ethnicity. And the example given is a symphony. We don't have one instrument playing, you have many different varieties of instruments playing. You have the uniqueness of each instrument, but when they play together, it's a symphony. And that's the idea of Judaism, is we're all different, we can play a beautiful symphony to God together. Every single person has their own purpose in the world, and we can play music together. Okay, let's go back to the attitude to food. Maimonides sums it up. He says a person should eat to live and not live to eat. So there's two ways of, you go to a restaurant, a person wants a good meal, and they live for the next visit to the restaurant. That's a bad way of living. A person should eat the minimum in order to keep alive. Minimum, the healthiest food possible in order to keep alive, keep strong. Sustenance. And the Talmud says, Sadiq ochel lesova nafsho, a righteous person eats what he requires for his soul, to keep alive. So Maimonides carries on, he says, if you see a rabbi who's overweight, right, he says, it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign in terms of self-control. Unfortunately, if you don't do much exercise, that's what results. But that's one of the problems we're facing today in this country is obesity. It's a very big problem today, and that's good to... Right. You see some vegetarians who are quite...
I agree on that.
I'm a lot thinner than I was before.
Okay.
Well,
I wasn't thinking you were.
Okay.
And that contributory factor of this meat eating is also due to that 100 years ago there was a lot
Of a wise person.
In fact, I think I saw it
You're right.
in one of the books on various rabbis.
Right.
I
Bit of exaggeration, but that's what the Talmud says.
Well, even
That's what
so,
Talmud
they
says.
were fat.
They're very fat, right?
To be even exaggerated in that way.
Okay, but anyway, that's not the ideal. The Jewish ideal is not that way. The Jewish ideal is to be healthy, eat to live, and not more than that. The Jewish ideal. Okay, we're all aiming to the ideal, doesn't mean we're all perfect. Okay, that's the ideal. We know the ideal is, let's try and move towards that end. And that's the way society is moving today, thank God. We're moving back to healthy, people are more involved with the health consciousness, which is a mitzvah in the Torah. It says, be very careful to guard your souls. The Torah tells explicitly, it's one of the commandments where it says, be very careful. There's not many commandments that says very, and it's one of the few. It says, Ushmartem me'od lenafshetechem. You will guard your souls very carefully. That's where we get this idea of being healthy. So we should eat to live and not live to eat. So the food is not only a means of keeping the body alive physically, but it also has an influence on the intellectual and spiritual makeup of the personality. So as what a person eats has an effect spiritually, if we link this to holiness, that's something which we can't see. It's interesting. I don't think there are any studies done on this idea. The idea is what you eat. Does it make you more passive person, more active person, more violent person? There are studies. Okay, if you can bring us maybe next time.
Well, being a vegetarian.
Maybe you can bring us some results. Maybe you can bring us some examples of that next week. Thanks.
Things like biochemically, when an animal sees it's going to die, it releases.
Okay, so maybe you can bring us some results.
When you eat it, you're eating those
some scientific
chemicals. Adrenaline.
Right, they know.
stuff
But does it affect you? That's the question.
Except for lambs, because they're not so brilliant.
Okay, we have to. That's what something we have to
Except
look
for
at.
lambs, because they just think that they're gonna. They just
Not
think
true.
sheep think they just gonna go.
Okay. So kashrut is one of the pillars of Jewish religious life, and yet its philosophical and moral foundations are rarely given much thought. What is the idea behind it? And especially if we want to maintain the loyalty of our youth to Jewish laws, we have to introduce them to the underlying ideas behind them. What are the ideas behind them? So many young thinking Jews today become all too keenly aware of the sociological Jewishness, and that is in terms of we're a nation, but what does it mean deeply? What do all these laws mean? People are losing track of what's going on. And as Jews lose track of their heritage, so the heritage of other people has a bigger impact on them. Maimonides writes, he says, a man should meditate on the laws of our Holy Torah and to know the deeper meaning as much as lies in their power. But a law which one has been unable to find a reason for should nevertheless not be treated lightly. In other words, we have to look for reasons, but some things we can't find reasons for doesn't mean there's no reason. Because everything has a reason. Maybe our mind is not big enough to find the reason. We have to look for the reason as much as possible. There are three possible methods of approach generally in dealing with the ideas of Jewish law. What are the approaches? The first approach is the ethical approach. How does this make me a better person?
At the least of it.
When we look at a Jewish law, we've got to find out. That's one thing we've got to look at and think of. Why did God think this is going to make me a better person? What is involved in this law which is going to make us better? Second approach is the mystical approach, which is the Kabbalistic school of thought, mainly by the Arizal, who is a famous Kabbalist in Sfat. What does this do for our souls? What impact does this have on the spiritual worlds above us? Because everything we do has an impact on the spiritual worlds which you cannot see. But the rabbis thousands of years ago already discussed different dimensions and different worlds. So I'm going to lecture in Concordia this Sunday. Those interested, Concordia at 11:15 at B'nai B'rith, giving a lecture there on Kabbalah, on Jewish mysticism. So that's the mystical dimension. The third idea behind Jewish law is the symbolical. What does it symbolize? What is the meaning behind it? So that's the three different levels of Jewish law in terms of the ethical, the mystical, and the symbolic. What is going on over here in terms of kashrut? The ethical idea is holiness. There is a concept of holiness in kashrut, whether it be that there's less cruelty to animals, whether it be the restriction in terms of what animals we can eat, what hunting is being allowed.
Thinking more about the life of the animal.
Right, thinking more about the life of the animal. That's one of the things which I'm going to quote someone. He says he didn't know the reason for kashrut, and he used to keep it out of habit. His parents, that's the way he was brought up. And then when his friends found out that he was keeping kosher, he used to ask him questions. Why are you doing this? Then he would have to think about it.
Hey, why am I doing this?
Right, so he'd have to think his own answers about the cruelty to animals, other things. The Kabbalah, the Jewish mysticism, what does it say about kashrut? According to the mystical explanation, the laws of the Bible have an effect not only on the character and soul of the person, but also on the harmony of the universe. The effect of fulfilling a commandment extends to the furthest reaches of the universe. The Kabbalists give an example. If you can imagine a very long rope, and you have a guy at the end just twisting the rope. Just those twists, those waves, carry on to the end of the rope. You can imagine us doing something at the bottom over here. So everything has a reaction. It's one of the laws of physics, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So also in the spiritual laws, the Kabbalah say, we do certain things, spiritually they're affecting certain things above. So everything we do, even on a mundane level, has some sort of repercussions above. The third, the symbolic interpretation, which is given by Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, who was a famous German rabbi. He lived in Frankfurt. Says the Torah itself makes good use of such symbols. We discussed this last week briefly, the idea of reflexive commandments. Something you do in order to remind yourself of God. So there's always symbolism in the commandments in order to remind us of other things. So when a person keeps the laws of kashrut, obviously there's a symbolism over there. Certain things are sacred, certain things are not sacred. They're dividing lines. There are dividing lines in life. Certain things are permitted, certain things are not permitted. What do the laws of kashrut consist of? Basically, permitted and prohibited animals, basically. Those are dividing lines. Some animals are permitted, some animals are not. Let's briefly go through the guidelines. Which species of animals are permitted? What are the two conditions? Hooves, cloven hooves,
Double stomach.
and chew the cud, double stomach.
It has to be split all the way, not like a camel. that's
Right,
partly split.
split all the way.
And no beasts of burden, including horse.
Okay, let's go through the... so those are the only animals allowed. Any other kind of variety of animals, even though they have one of them. What's interesting about the Bible is one of the...
Double stomach.
There are 4 animals and they haven't found any others
Right.
that have one
That's
sign.
one of the interesting
Those
things,
4 that
right.
they list.
One of the interesting things in the Bible is 4 animals are specified in the Bible as having one kind of these signs, not the other one. What are they? The pig, the camel, the hare, and the rabbit. The rabbit.
I thought one was a badger and one was a rabbit.
Okay, there's different ways of translating those words in Hebrew. It says shafan and arnevet,
Why with the rabbit, though?
because it chews. It doesn't have cloven hooves. It doesn't have any hoof. It does chew. It chews continually. So those are the 4 exceptions. And until today, we don't know of any others. It's interesting how the Bible knew this thousands of years ago. It's one of the proofs we had in the Discovery Seminar of the fact that God wrote the Bible. It's one of the things you'll never know otherwise. How do they know thousands of years ago there's no other species on earth except for these 4? It's one of the interesting ideas.
And the camel?
Camels have, they don't have cloven hooves.
No, actually.
It's not split
the whole way,
It's
right.
split partly, but it's not split all the way.
Okay, that's one division, permitted and prohibited animals. Then even in the permitted animals, we have prohibited parts. Certain parts are prohibited, which are one of the laws given to Jacob, the nerve, the sciatic nerve.
In the leg.
Kidnash, which is sciatic nerve in the rear quarters, right, because of the struggle Jacob had with the angel, and he got wounded in that part. Since that time, Jews don't eat that part. Since we remember that it's a nerve in the back, in the hindquarters of the leg, the nerves, a sciatic nerve. So that's it's one of the things we don't eat. It's called Gid Hanasheh. Gid Hanasheh is one of the nerves.
You can't have,
Today, outside Israel, they've lost the art of removing this nerve. There's so much meat in abundance, it's too much trouble, whatever the reason. Sfardim always did it. Sfardim has always done it. In Israel, fortunately, they're still doing it because of the price of meat. And if you want to go and have a T-bone steak, you can go to Israel and have one. You won't find one here. You won't find a kosher one here, at least. Filet mignon, same thing. So we have prohibited parts of permitted animals. What they do is they take out that nerve. It's just the nerve which is forbidden. If you know how to take out the nerve, you can eat the rest. Today over here they can't be bothered to take it out. It involves a lot of effort. They don't bother. They don't know how to take it out properly. So in Israel they're still traditional. They know how to do it, so they carry on doing it. So there are parts of the animal which are prohibited. The other parts are certain parts of fat. The fat around the liver, the Bible tells us, is forbidden. Very, very chelef. It's called the fat around the liver. Those are the parts which are forbidden. There are other parts which are forbidden rabbinically and not biblically. There are circumstances on which otherwise permitted animals are prohibited. An animal which is on the verge of collapse, dying within a year, is prohibited already. It may be passed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Kashrut would say it's not kosher. So even though it's healed, whatever it is, Jewish law would say no. A small hole in the lungs, any kind of hole in the lungs,
Okay.
no good. Glatt kosher. Anyone know what glatt kosher means? What is smooth? The lungs are smooth, right? So what
The thing is that there are certain things that wouldn't render an animal as being non-kosher as far as regular kosher, but the glatt kosher won't take any of
No
it.
tumors.
Right, no tumors, no limpets. The holes, definitely everyone agrees. The question is, pardon, you don't know. You have to kill it and check it.
No broken limbs.
That's the only way. Right. So that's one of the things which has to be checked is the lungs. The lungs of the animal. The fourth thing is the method of slaughtering. Method of slaughtering is very, very important. How it's killed. If you have a kosher animal, perfectly healthy, the method of killing is very, very important. And then we have the fifth thing, which is kashrut also delineates, is the prohibited food combinations. Certain foods cannot be mixed with others. Milk and meat, for example, cannot be mixed together. Again, it's an interesting idea of
Twice it's mentioned.
3 times. The Bible mentions this 3 times. Do not cook a calf in its mother's milk. It's mentioned 3 times. Why 3 times? One, to tell us you can't eat it,
And then no mixtures of...
you can't cook it,
And then no milk
and you can't benefit from it. Let's go through that again. You can't cook a calf in its mother's meat is mentioned 3 times. One, to tell you cannot have any benefit from it, you can't cook it, and you can't eat it.
And no milk and meat mixtures.
Right.
Specifically those words.
Doesn't say that in the Bible. It says calf in its mother's milk. That's what it says. From there we derive that law. From there we derive that law. From that's the place where we derive that law. A kid.
And its mother's milk.
It says gedi b'chalev imo. Right. A gedi is a calf. Right. It's the same extension, same principle, which applies to calves as well. That was a common procedure in those days, where you had a farmer who would have a couple of calves, and he would also have milk from the mothers. So he had a guest or something, some special occasion, he would slaughter the calf and cook it in the milk. We find this in the Bible. The Bible tells us which story? Come on. A couple of weeks ago.
No milk and meat mixtures.
Right.
Specifically those words.
Doesn't say that in the Bible. It says calf in its mother's milk. That's what it says. From there we derive that law. From there we derive that law. From that's the place where we derive that law. A kid.
And its mother's milk.
It says gedi b'chalev imo. Right. A gedi is a calf. Right. It's the same extension, same principle, which applies to calves as well. That was a common procedure in those days, where you had a farmer who would have a couple of calves, and he would also have milk from the mothers. So he had a guest or something, some special occasion, he would slaughter the calf and cook it in the milk. We find this in the Bible. The Bible tells us which story? Come on. A couple of weeks ago. Abraham had guests. He sends his son to get some lamb, and he also gets some milk, and he prepares them a beautiful repast. This is before the Bible was given. Butter and milk and cheese and meat as well. The last law concerning kashrut is the vessels and utensils which were contain these prohibited foods. What are the laws? Also very intricate laws. How to kosher these vessels. Okay, let's go through some of the reasons behind these things. Why are certain species of animals prohibited? First of all, the Bible tells us repeatedly not to consume blood, which is said to contain the soul of the animal, i.e. animal instincts or passions. So that's one of the reasons given, is the avoidance of transferring animal instincts into man. We don't want to become animals. We want to be above the animals, above the level of the animals. The general principle is the nearer an animal is to the vegetable world and its habits and composition, the less likely it is to arouse the animal nature in man. So we eat basically animals which are very placid.
Vegetarian.
Right. Vegetarian nature. Right. They don't eat it. Except for fish. The only exceptions are fish, where we eat fish which eat other fish. Okay. Generally. No, the animals definitely. All the animals which are kosher are not predators. Right? Even buffaloes don't eat other animals. Birds too, same thing. Fish is the only exception, but fish itself does not require shechita. It's very interesting. The nature of fish is very, cold-blooded. It's a cold-blooded species. It's not hot-blooded, and therefore the instincts. It's an interesting idea of fish. That's right. The only blood which is allowed is fish blood. The only kind of blood which is allowed is fish blood. Other kinds of blood from animals are not allowed at all. Even the domesticated animals. Even the animals which are kosher, their blood is not allowed.
You're allowed to eat fish raw then?
Yes, definitely.
Good deal.
Sushi. Kosher fish.
Good deal.
No, there is the blood.
No, but I mean once you get
the blood out, the only prohibition is bal tishakitzu. Don't make yourself disgusting. As if that's not the dumb thing in people's eyes. You don't normally eat meat raw. People see it, they get disgusted by it. It's one of the prohibitions in the Torah.
Even when I'll talk about it later.
Okay. So that's the general principle. We eat placid animals with less violent nature. So the animals, imagine a cow moo moo moo, and that's what we eat. The sheep don't run around very much. They're not very wild.
All the birds are kosher?
No, not all birds. There are 18 birds mentioned in the Bible which are not kosher. What happened is, the translation of these words are not accurate. We don't know what these translations are today. So that's why today we don't eat birds where there is no custom of eating. As we go back in terms of Jewish history, try and find what birds did our ancestors eat. So we have basically a couple of species. Let's list the species of kosher birds. Let's go.
Dove,
Pigeon, dove, chicken, duck, geese, turkey, quail.
Quail.
7.
Quail it mentions.
Right.
mentions the thing.
Quail is mentioned explicitly in the Bible. That's another proof for vegetarianism. I'm going to go through that.
Oh,
is that
yeah,
God
that's my favorite.
is that God gave them manna for 40 years. God gave them manna for 40 years, and
That's one
then
of my
until they
favorites.
cried for meat. When they cried for meat, they got quail. But that was in 40 years they lived on manna.
Gotta watch out
And that was
for
a vegetable.
quail.
So it's 7 species which are known to be kosher. Obviously there are many others which are kosher, but we just lost the custom of eating. Fish, anything with fins and scales are kosher. No insects are kosher except for
Some locust.
some kind of locust, grasshopper locust.
I don't. If I'm
Only
not mistaken,
2
very few people know.
only
what
2
they
ethnic groups,
are. Yemenite.
Yemenites and Moroccans, ate those species. Yemenite Jews and Moroccan Jews knew which kind of locust. But again, those locusts are interesting. Those locusts do eat grain. That's all they eat. They said, I spoke to someone who ate them. So you open them up, they're full of grain. That's all they eat. They taste like corn. They taste like
Good
wheat.
expression.
Okay. So law of kashrut falls into all 4 categories of Jewish law and are saturated with ethical meanings. The major purpose of kashrut is 1. To limit the number of animals the Jew is permitted to eat and kill, which is reflexive and ethical in nature. Limit the amount of slaughter. Number 2. To render the slaughter of permitted animals as painless as possible, which is ethical. Number 3. To cause revulsion at the shedding of blood, which is enabled also to refine the character of the person. Number 4. To instill self-discipline, which is the major purpose of all the commandments. Don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this. We mentioned this last week. A person goes into a restaurant, he can't eat this, can't eat that, can't eat the other. What can you eat? So a lot of self-discipline involved.
Vegetables that have not been touched by water, oil, or anything
No,
else.
you can eat it if they've been touched as long as you wash your hands. If you wash your hands, you're allowed to eat them. Let's go into that law. You raised a very interesting point. The Talmud tells us there's a law of defilement for fruits and vegetables. If they touch 7 liquids, they come in contact
Water,
with 7 liquids.
honey, oil,
Olive oil. Water, honey, oil, yeah.
milk.
Milk.
This is hard. I don't
Any
know the
others?
rest.
Wine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Blood.
Oh, indeed.
Fish blood we're talking about, even though fish blood is allowed. And dew.
Yes.
So 7 kinds of liquids, which if it's on the fruit, you're not allowed to eat it straight away. You've got to wash hands. I was speaking to a doctor. He's a medical doctor. His field is inflammations and diseases and infectious diseases. He said, it's unbelievable. How did the rabbis know this thousands of years ago? This is how you transmit diseases through these liquids. Amazing. Anyway, so the rabbi said, wash your hands before you eat them if they're dipped in these things.
Wash your hand and wash the fruit.
No, you can either wipe the fruit. You have 2 alternatives. Either wipe the fruit off, we wipe the fruit dry, or wash your hands.
Because it has a protective skin,
Okay.
all of these things.
So those are the 2 options given by the...
Wash your hands before you eat the fruit, not before.
You have to
can eat
wash
the fruit.
anyway, because you
if
have
your
to
hands
say
are
bracha.
washed, no, there's no bracha on it. You just wash your hands.
On fruit and vegetables, no?
I'm talking about the bracha on your
You don't
hands.
have
There's
to
no
wash
bracha on
it.
it.
Oh.
You don't have to do al netilat
Right,
yadayim except when you're
No.
eating bread.
So that's a person either has to wash his hands, and then he can eat the fruit wet. Or he has to wipe the fruit, in which case it's dry, and then you can eat it. But you can't eat it when the fruit is wet. Because the infection goes through the hands. The hands are not washed through the water on the fruit. The infection cannot be transmitted dry, which the doctor found very interesting. The earliest of Jewish dietary laws is the ban on eating meat with blood in it. According to Berkeley professor Jacob Milgrom, he says, surprisingly, this is very interesting, none of Israel's neighbors possessed this absolute and universally binding blood prohibition. None of the neighbors. There's many historians try and say, we got these laws from our neighbors, the previous history, the Babylonians, the Romans, whatever they had. No other neighbor which Jews came in contact with had this prohibition regarding blood. Okay, so that's one of the biblical laws. Man has a right to nourishment, not to life. So therefore we can have the meat, but not the blood. Life is not our domain. We don't take the life of the animal, which is symbolized by the blood. He says that this has had a profound moral impact. It has helped produce an extraordinary antipathy to bloodthirst. One addition is, in addition to the uniquely low incidence of violence amongst Jews, you can take a survey in prisons today. You won't find many Jews in there for violent crimes. They're all in there for blue-collar crimes.
White collar.
White collar. White-collar crimes. Also has been the virtual non-existence of hunting for sport amongst Jews. Also violent sports, boxing, wrestling. You go to Israel today, you won't find them.
Wasn't there an incident in history where they accused the Jews
Right,
of
definitely.
drinking blood?
That's right. That's the
Yeah,
that's the irony.
Christian children.
That's
and
the
how it's
irony. The
related.
irony is blood is one of the things we're definitely not allowed to touch. That's one of the ironies with
Bloody
It was in medieval times because there were a lot of
Till today-
strange things going on then.
Till today, give you another example. The Bible tells us you're not allowed to slaughter a mother and its baby on the same day. The Germans killed mothers and children on the same day. We don't even do that to animals. We do this to humans. It's happening today. Right? The idea of shooing away the mother bird and taking the eggs, taking the young. You don't take the eggs in front of the mother. Even a chicken has feelings. So any mother has got feelings for the children. You don't take away.
What's the whole thing with Newton's Day?
Okay, we come to that's not a biblical law. There's no biblical source for that. The Talmud tells us it's bad for the health to mix meat and fish. Okay, one of these expands a bit. He says the different rates of digestion. There's the meat and fish got different chemical reactions going on, and has some sort of bearing on our health. So therefore, we're not allowed to eat them, but not at the same time, on the same plate.
With the same fork?
You wipe the fork, and you can eat it. Okay. The next expression of Judaism's application of morality to eating animals. Keeping kosher is Judaism's compromise with its ideal of vegetarianism. I'm going to discuss that. We find that the first man was vegetarian. In the Bible, when God created the world, God told man to be a vegetarian. That is really the ideal. Man cannot exist without meat for certain reasons. God says, okay, but let's limit it. Let's not limit you. We're going to limit you very, very carefully to a minute amount of the species of animals around the world. Very minute proportion of animals are allowed.
We have to stop talking about food, Rabbi. I'm growling. Please.
Go next door. Have an option.
I know, I just go eat.
There's a
now.
party going on.
Just leave and go eat.
Okay. The Talmud says, it says a person should not eat meat unless they have a special craving for it. It's not something you eat every day. You go out, you feel like, I want to eat meat today, it's something special. A person should then, that's one of the desires of man. And then a person could eat it. So the Jewish ideal is not that we should not kill for food. Its compromise, known as kashrut, places a strict limit on the number of animals which Jews may kill to eat. Also legislates a uniquely humane manner in which to kill the permitted animals. And that's the reason for the word holy, probably. The animals that are permitted are edited by certain characteristics. So both characteristics, chewing its cud and splitting the hooves, also prevent the animal from running. Okay, so usually they're very passive animals. They don't run. They don't race after animals. They don't kill other animals. There's no specific prohibition against pig, which is very interesting. Even though the Bible lists this as one of them. In fact, it's probably better than the other kinds of species because at least this has one of the signs of kashrut. So that's one of the common misconceptions. A Jew will tell you, I eat everything except pork. Where you get that idea from? That is not a Jewish idea. In fact, the Talmud says, the word for a pig in Hebrew is chazir. It says chazir comes from the root chozer. So the Talmud says eventually the pig will return to being kosher. That's why they found a kosher pig. That's what they said last year.
But they meet all the criteria. Is the pig meet?
Only meets one of them. It has a cloven hoof, but doesn't chew the cud. Doesn't chew anything. That's why pig is not kosher, but there's no special prohibition against pig. So for a Jew to come along and say, I don't eat pig, I'll eat everything else, is wrong. I mean, they're all the same. Anything else was the same. Okay, the next step in the moral concern about eating animals was the requirement that the killing of the animal be as painless and humane as possible. So any kind of wounding automatically makes the animal non-kosher. So wounding the animal without killing it outright makes the animal non-kosher. So you just cut it and the animal just get wounded, you can't finish it off. It's not kosher. In addition, the person who slaughters it should not be any other person. It should be a person who's very well educated and pious and will be careful with these laws. Therefore the rabbis going around checking the knives. Are they sharp? Are they smooth? Any little nick. One of the hardest parts of being a shochet is making that knife smooth. Little nick. If you cut yourself with paper, you'll know the difference between a blunt instrument and a sharp instrument. You cut yourself with a sharp instrument, you won't feel it. It's really razor sharp, you won't feel it. In fact, testing the knife, in those days, you just test it on their tongues. Shock it. Today we do it on our fingernails. It's got to be on the fingernail and a bit of the flesh. So see how smooth it is. It should be tested 6 times on 3 edges, 2 sides and the top, backwards and forwards. 6 times the knife's got to be checked before the actual slaughter's got to go through.
By that time you have to sharpen it again, though.
No. Don't worry. By that time you probably have a cut finger.
Right, that's what I'm saying, and then you have to wash your hands again 1,000 times.
Okay.
And there's no end.
In addition, Jewish law demands that we not eat meat and milk together. And this is based on the Bible, as we mentioned before. The intent is ethical. What is the reason for separating milk and meat? And the concept could be directly related to Judaism's idea of death and life. You know, there are certain religions which put death as a very high thing. The Chinese worship their ancestors, the dead. They worship the dead. The Egyptians same. They used to build pyramids. You see the dead over there. They worship them. So in other words, it's a religion based around death. The Jewish ideal is totally the opposite. It's a religion based on life, not death. Okay, so death is taboo. Our priests, the Kohanim, cannot go in to make themselves defiled for the dead, except for 7 relatives. 7 relatives: father, mother, sister, brother, son, daughter, or wife. Those are 7 relatives Kohen can become tamei for. No one. Suicide for a good cause. They'll kill 20 people, they'll go to heaven. Paradise is waiting for them. Kamikaze pilots. Idea that what? I'm going to die for a good cause. Judaism says no. Judaism says no.
Fanatics.
Well, kamikazes? Yeah?
They were locked in the plane. They didn't know that they believed they were.
Yeah, but why they died? They didn't have to
They
die.
were going to dive and jump out of the plane.
No.
They had no idea that they were locked in there.
Okay. Sure, after a few times they found out.
Say Joe
very
Rogan
easy
again.
to spread the propaganda you want
Okay.
to spread.
Yes. Very good. Excellent.
Life
Excellent. Good.
is in the milk, isn't
Right.
it?
Okay, good.
And the
Milk is a sustain of life. The children get the milk. It sustains life. Meat is dead already. It's not a dead animal. That's symbolism. That's a symbolism. There's a symbolic representation. That is a symbolic representation. The milk symbolizes life, which is a source of sustenance for the living being. The meat symbolizes death. So we have the separation between the two. Judaism, it's interesting, nowhere in the Bible does it mention the world to come explicitly. It doesn't talk about paradise, it doesn't talk about anything. The 5 books of Moses doesn't talk about it. Why? Because the Bible tells us live now. Now is the time we have to live for. We have to do our utmost in this world. We have to perfect this world. The next world will worry about itself. We believe in the next world as well. There's only hinting to in the Bible tells us that Abraham died. Yeah, right. Not in Chamesh. Why not in the Bible? Why didn't Moses write it down explicitly? He didn't. He wrote it down implicitly. It says Abraham died and was gathered to his fathers. Those are the hints we have in the Bible. It doesn't explicitly. Why? The Bible does not say pay an emphasis on the dead. Okay. Pay emphasis on life. Now is the time to work and correct ourselves and fix the world, and not later on. Very good. Very good. Right. That's right. Right. So we don't want to make any mistakes in terms of worshipping anyone. Moses was the closest to that sort of idea. If he went up or whatever, they never saw him. He was like the messenger, the go-between. He could have become the son of God. Who knows? We never made that mistake. Thank God for that. And the reason probably is because, right. So we never made that mistake, but it could very well be made. Kashrut also serves the crucial purpose of strengthening each Jew's self-control. As we mentioned, it's one of the reasons. So, every time a Jew sits down to eat a kosher meal, he or she is reminded that the animal being eaten is a creature of God. Death of such a creature cannot be taken lightly. Hunting for sport is forbidden. We cannot treat any living thing irresponsibly. We are responsible for whatever happens to other beings, even if we did not personally come in contact with them. So that's different ideas on laws of kashrut. All the laws I mentioned are biblical from God.
mean were given to Moses?
So it was given to Moses, written down by Moses in the Torah. 5 books of Moses mentions milk and meat, it mentions all these kosher varieties of animals. Certain laws were given by man, like say chicken and milk, or a wild animal and milk, like venison and milk. It's not prohibited by the Bible. The Bible tells us explicitly a gedi, which is a kid, is referring to a domesticated animal and milk. Only when it's cooked. If it wasn't cooked together, it's okay. You can eat it together. But rabbinical law comes and adds to make fences around the Torah law. If you're going to transgress this, you're going to transgress that. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, right? First, I said, we're going to delay this mistake. We're going to stop the mistake. Don't do it. First, let's discuss a bit about vegetarianism. Okay. What is the source? Certain chief rabbis of Israel, Shlomo Goren is one of the former chief rabbis of Israel. He's a vegetarian. Rav Kook was a vegetarian, the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Israel. Certain other famous people were vegetarians.
Gary was very sympathetic to vegetarians.
Yeah, I'm going to discuss that. So what does the Torah seem to say about it? God's first dietary law is strictly vegetarian. We mentioned that before, don't eat from the tree. And plus he says to Adam, he says, eat only the herbs, and the grass and the fruits. Not even dairy. Right. So God's first intention that people should be vegetarian has been stated by Jewish classical biblical commentators. All the famous commentators have all stated that. According to the chief rabbi Isaac Kook, he was the first chief rabbi of Israel, he says eating meat was a temporary concession to human weakness. That's what he says. See, this is what he says. Let me just quote. What was the necessity for the entire procedure of ritual slaughter? He says, for the sake of self-discipline. It is far more appropriate for man not to eat meat. Only if he has a strong desire for meat does the Torah permit it, and even this only after the trouble and inconvenience necessary to satisfy his desire. Perhaps because of the bother and annoyance of the whole procedure, he will be restrained from such a strong and uncontrollable desire for meat. Whereas before Empire Poultry, it was much harder. It was much harder, right? It was much harder. Right. So it's much harder to get meat, and today it's too easy. Leave them.
Considered kosher?
Is what?
Organ meat, like the liver, the kidneys, the heart.
Yeah. As long as the blood is removed. As long as the blood is removed, kidneys are kosher. You can get kidneys with kosher as long as you take out the fat. I don't know if today they know how to take out the fat. In Israel, if you go there, you can buy kidneys which are kosher. They know how to take out the fat. They have some fats which are forbidden from the rabbis. The liver is the fat around the liver is the main thing. The liver can only be kosher through roasting. The blood will never come out unless it's roasted. There's so much blood inside. The other parts of the body can be kosher through salting. Salting the meat, the blood is removed.
Anyway, it's very bad for you.
You only salt, you pour a sprinkle at the time of roasting. At the same time as you're roasting.
This is before I became a vegetarian, and when we were still roasting our own livers, we used to pour salt.
Right, you should do it at the same time. Right, at the time of the roasting, you pour the salt.
Pour more salt and back and forth.
But not too much salt, not too much. And that's the proof given, we mentioned it before, is the Jews were fed with manna for 40 years, and only when they cried for meat would God give them quail, and then there was a great pestilence, it says.
What's the
The man? It was a vegetable. The Torah says it was a seed. Okay? Zera Gadhu, it says. Zera Gad, whatever that means, it's called coriander in English. It's a coriander seed. That's the translation. I don't know how accurate that translation is. Okay. Rav Kook believes that people would again be vegetarian in the days of the Messiah, and they base it on the prophecy of Isaiah. It says, and the lion will live with the lamb, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, the wolf, right? And the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and none shall hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. So he says, none shall hurt and destroy is referring to man killing animals as well. And animals killing animals, all this will be stopped. Okay, we'll stop here. Any questions? Do we have food for thought? Only vegetables which are rotten and have worms in them. Worms are the problem, not the vegetables. The problem is certain vegetables are infested with worms and very hard to clean. Those are vegetables are forbidden, like broccoli and
certain cheeses cannot be kosher.
Because they're what? Wormy?
There's something
Bacteria, as long as you can't see them, it's okay. As long as you can't see them, it's okay. We go by what can be seen by the naked eye, thank God. Otherwise, there's no limit. You know, you look at a microscope, who knows what you'll see over there? So thank God, we're not angels, we go by the naked eye.
What about animals?
Yeah. No problem. Culture, you can't see anything. Alcohol? Alcohol? It's kosher. Unless it's made from wine. That's another prohibition of
But
wine.
wine has nothing to do with kosher.
Grapes. It's a kosher law. It's a law which eventually became a kosher law in terms of something which cannot be eaten.
How you handle it.
And that is normally in those days. See, what happened in those days was the wine was used for idolatry. That's the prohibition. The rabbis came along. They said, don't drink wine which has been made by a non-Jew because it could have been made for the till today. The Catholics, I think, have they do offer up wine. They have a sort of wine libation. Well, I don't know. I don't know all the details. You know more than me, Debbie, on these things. I don't know much about it.
I don't know much of that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Don't forget this Sunday there's a seminar from 2 to 8. Whatever time you can come, please try and come. Thank you.
Something which we try and teach our children from a very early age. Control. How do you teach a child control? Only by telling him what to do, what not to do. And this you can do, and this you can't do. And then the child learns, oh, okay, this I can do, this I can't do. But if there's no suggestions of what to do, what not to do, the child never learns control. So when God tried to teach human beings, mankind control. And you see what happens when mankind is not controlled, it becomes a barbarian. Look at Hitler, look what happened. It's barbarism without control. So if you have society without control, it goes wild. So really the Torah does is put brakes on all these areas of the impulses, of instinct. Food is an instinct. Puts a brake. Sexuality is an instinct. We're going to talk about that later. There's brakes. Other kinds of things. Speech about other people. Instinct. Brakes. Everything which is instinctive. The brakes, we're not animals, tries to elevate us from the animal stage to a higher stage. That's basically the idea. An animal, he's hungry, eats anything in sight. We're not animals. We're not allowed to do that. So it's trying to teach us to break our impulses, to control ourselves. So the third reason, so first we said the reason of Shabbat is peace within oneself. Second reason is peace with other people. Third reason is peace with man, with nature. The fourth reason is what we're building up to is peace between man and God. So on Shabbat we reflect on what God wants of us. Shabbat is God's day, it's a spiritual day. It's not a day where we have our physical masters, it's a day of the spiritual master. We reflect on God and the spiritual. So those basically are the 4 ideas behind the Shabbat, philosophical ideas behind Shabbat. You have any questions? Any questions? Yes.
Relating to the kosher food,
Right.
is there also a point also to separate, to keep you separate or distant from non-Jews?
Yes, that's right.
Is that
Yes, that's one of them. That's one of the reasons, and that's also one of the reasons for Shabbat. When we have a day of rest, we can't do anything. I mean, we're dull and boring 1 day a week. And people come to us and say, "Hey, can you come with us? We want to take you to the movie." No, I can't. Shabbat. So again, that separates us.
that bothers me because that, you know,
How can you be an example to a person? How are the Jews meant to be an example to the world if they're not separate? We have to be separate and distinct, and yet we have to be close enough to be an example, to be friendly enough for the example. The first classification of that, let me just give you an example. Abraham. Here was Abraham working his best to be friendly to people and try and draw them in and make them believe in God. First missionary was our forefather Abraham. Trying to spread the knowledge of God in the world. God tells him, circumcise yourself. He says, hey God, he says, if I circumcise myself, I'm going to be different. I'm going to look different. If I'm going to look different, how can people associate with me? They won't want to associate with me. They'll say, hey, Abraham's different. He's separate. He's a person. He's a different person. God says, no, you have to be different to show the example. People have to look up to you and know that this guy's different, and say, why is he different? What is he doing? And then they'll see. Why is Israel always in the news? Why are the Jewish people always in the news? Because everyone knows we're different. If they didn't know we were different, we wouldn't be in the news. We'd be like them, and we'd be like everyone else, and no one would point a finger at us, and there would be no example.